Morning, Jamie.
Good morning.
So we're really excited. Jamie and I are here in this bonus episode of the Love Sweetie podcast. Yeah, our very first bonus episode, because I came across some materials, a document that is really relevant to where we are in Sweetie's story right now. And came across it a little late after the episode, but that's okay. We're not too far from it. So, as everybody knows, and spoiler alert, if you don't know this yet, please go back and listen to some of the previous episodes of the Love Sweetie podcast. For this bonus episode, I'd specifically reference episodes 13 and episode 14. 13 is the first episode in which Sweetie meets her eventual husband, Lew. And episode 14 is the wedding. So we've had some photos of the wedding. Amazingly, Sweetie kept her cake topper. So that's now on the website. We talked about that. But what has surfaced is Sweetie's original wedding album. So we wanted to do a bonus episode to take the time to go through Sweetie's album so we can see the list of attendees and some of the things that were recorded and documented from this time. And if you are listening and you have heard these episodes, please enjoy. This is going to be easier to listen to on YouTube with the visuals, but we're still going to release this bonus episode onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we'll try to describe everything we're seeing there as well. So a little extra Sweetie content for this morning, but definitely wanted to share this because right now the podcast letters are in early 1944 and the wedding was in December 1943. So without further ado, I'm going to hold up the album here. Now, Sweetie was very good about keeping things very orderly, so it is in its original box that it was purchased in. The box is very blank. It only says on the end that it is called My Bridal Days. That was the name of the book that they filled out. And this was made in Norwalk, Connecticut. So it was something, today I'm sure a ton of things are made overseas. But this bridal book was made in Connecticut. And she also, everybody needs to try to keep your things nice. It has its original tissue paper dust jacket still surviving back then. That's why you can't exactly see the cover too well at the moment. I'm going to remove that, though. One of the rare times we'll take this off so everybody can see the original book. It runs about 30 pages or so. So here's the album. I'll hold it up to the screen so everybody can see this. Really lovely little book. Ivory in color. Very distinctive 40s colors, that shade of pink and that shade of green. But it's called My Bridal Days. Now, I'm not going to do this episode where I'm holding up every page and saying, look, everybody, look at these pages. They'd be difficult to read. Yeah. So I'm happy to announce that the entire bridal book has been uploaded into the lovesweetiepodcast.com website. And so we're going to explore it together with very clean images of everything so everybody can see the details here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Love Sweetie podcast website, and I encourage, if you're on your computer, you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to on your screens. So we'll share this. Great. So in order to get to the album itself, it's very simple. You're just going to click the Sweetie scrapbook link from the main page at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com and then click the photos section. Click the image above where it says the photos and you'll get to the albums. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second because we do have an album of the pictures of the wedding, and that's Sweetie's wedding album there. So if you somehow missed seeing the pictures of the wedding, there you go. You can explore that by viewing this album. Very accessible. You can either click into the photos and rotate through them or select certain things. So if you missed those, by all means, please check out the pictures of the wedding. But where you're going to see the pages of this particular album is scroll down to the very bottom. There's two sections here of artifacts, and one is photos of family heirlooms. That's the one you're going to click to get to this. And this has been updated to show Sweetie's wedding album, the Bridal Days book here, right next to the cake topper. If you'd like to see that again.
And all you have to do is with the little navy gentleman there.
Yeah, the little navy sailor. Oh, it's so pretty.
Oh, it's so,
yeah.
It's such a lovely piece.
But here's the book. And then in order to take a look at the interior pages, all you have to do is click this link and it should download as a PDF onto your screen. So I'm actually going to stop sharing here for a moment because I already have it open on the other screen, and we're going to go through these pages together. All right.
And this is such a lovely example of like the culture of the time, like how things are handled and like this is a lovely graphic.
Oh yeah.
You see you have the geometrical shapes here, but with the floral, and like you said, the colors are very speak to the time.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And then there's some blank pages here. Now, Sweetie didn't fill out all of the pages of the album, so I suspect what was supposed to be done with this, because they use mounting corners. If you've ever seen this in the old scrapbooks, they're the little corners that you insert the photos into. Yeah. I suspect that most people would be getting the copies of the photographs and use those mounting squares to insert photos onto certain pages. So she just didn't do that. We just have the photos separately. And that's why I also wanted to say, like, here we can look at the photos that probably would have been put here.
And that's okay. That's the kind of thing I actually really, I can empathize with that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the kind of person that finishes stuff either. I have not finished my own wedding album.
It's easy to get behind on scanning in photos and organizing them. I'm working with a collection of probably now upwards of 1,000 photos from Sweetie. And I got all the supplies for doing it. I'm all ready to go. I've got like an archival box, handling them with gloves, using great apps. The technology's there. And, you think it's, this can be a fast process. And you realize like each photo you're trying to like catalog it and move through and do that inventory. So it's taking a while, but I think it's being done the right way.
Yes, it has. Yes, it's being done. Absolutely. Yeah. And here's another like lovely, lovely example of the art of the time.
Oh, yeah. Wonderful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So this is really the interior cover. Now, you saw for people watching the screens, you've seen some blank pages go through. And I like things to be complete and accurate for what they are. So they've just been scanned in. If it's a blank page, it's still there. So you get the total page count of what this album was. I think it's 36 if you count the cover and the back. So about a 30-page document or so. But yeah, the image of the bride here, My Bridal Days, coming in. And we can see the copyright actually not dated, but probably 30s, 40s. I would say actually this is probably very current. It's probably 1942 or 1943. There was a lot of people getting married, documenting things. And then, printed in the USA. We like those jobs staying home. And the company here, was it C.R. Gibson and Company, Norwalk, Connecticut. The image of the bride with the veil looks very much like the topper.
It does.
She really does look
like the blonde short hair.
Yep. It's funny that that's like that. And then we have the interior, and they have this beautiful lily vase. And you can also get an idea of what were probably the flower arrangements of the time, because they're sketching it out, these lovely watercolors. And it says here, "Oh, promise me that you will take my hand, the most unworthy in this lonely land, and let me sit beside you in your eyes, seeing the vision of our paradise, hearing God's message while the organ, rolls. Yeah, his mighty music to our very souls. No love less perfect than a life with thee. Oh, promise me, in the poem by Clement Scott, looks like the name here. So we get this nice little message from the manufacturers here about the weddings. And then this is one of the pages she didn't fill out. I'm guessing this would have been the spot to put a photo of the engagement. We tell our friends documenting when this happened. This was a very quick engagement.
Yeah.
Her sister's there. So, yeah. Next page, parties for us. So I'm suspecting that this page was to log like the bridal shower and things. It's World War II. It's a little tough for that. And also the rapid pace. Showers for me, right? And you can put like your party picture here and insert that in my hope chest. So things that they're storing. So if she wanted to log all of this, there was given the space to do that. Her trousseau, right? So some of the clothing articles to be documented here.
What, my trousseau?
The trousseau. Yeah, let's look this up. I know this term. I've heard it before. So the trousseau.
So it must be like a wardrobe, or?
The clothes, household linen, and other belongings collected by a bride for her marriage. So it's a number of belongings. The trousseau. Yeah. And I love the image of the woman here in the closet door. I love the robe.
And again, like the short hair of the time, like that. And then, and I seem to remember too that Lew did give her lingerie.
Oh, yeah. Short hair is really seen as something that's more formal, that it was not really appropriate to wear your hair down historically. I remember this, because I was going to mention this at some point in some future episode, but because we're talking about the short hair now, I used to do some living history for the 19th century around the Civil War era. And when you look at these pictures, the women always have their hair up. And the reason that they did is because unless it was a party at night, like an evening formal, you were to have your hair up in public. You weren't to wear it down during the day or anything like that. And if you watch the movie Gone with the Wind, which we know was Sweetie's favorite film,
in
the first scene when Scarlett O'Hara, like if I have to do a spoiler alert on a 1939 movie.
You don't have to, if you haven't seen Gone with the Wind by now.
Yeah. Like, it's available. Yeah. But even if you're not going to watch the whole thing, watch the first scene of Gone with the Wind. And it's Scarlett O'Hara running out to greet her father. And she's got the white dress on with the green trim. And she's wearing that wonderful hat that Vivien Leigh was wearing. And you'll notice that Scarlett O'Hara has short sleeves and her hair down. Now, if we look at the trousseau image here, and this is where things are still carrying over as tradition, her hair is up and she's wearing long sleeves during the day, the woman. So Scarlett is seen as a rebel immediately, silently through the film, because she's going against the rules immediately. Her hair is down during the day. She's running around outside with short sleeves. Short sleeves, hair down, only formal events in the evening. So this is something that's carrying on all the way back from the 19th century and probably beyond where it started. At least by the 40s, the expectation was probably for most women, long sleeves, unless you're, an adolescent and your hair up. So something to think about that that's not obviously not the tradition anymore.
Not the tradition anymore, but very interesting. Very interesting.
But it has those roots, going all the way back. Photograph of the bride, obviously. We have that elsewhere. So she didn't insert their photograph of the groom. These beautiful pages.
I love this geometrical, like you kind of have this Art Deco.
Sort of deco thing going on.
That was, I think, was that, but like with the geometrical shapes and then like the flowers, like the juxtaposition of these two things. So it's like, it's very telling of the time it has, this is really, even if there's nothing in there, the book is really cool.
And then we do get to some content where she did use the book. And I love these pages. I love the design of the tree. Family trees always have these branches and they can extend out in a landscape format very wide. This is a way to present a family tree in a portrait mode, which I think is very clever. This is the bride's side, and she has a good idea about her past here. Now, Catherine Frances Demery, the bride, on the one side, we have her mother, and it labels each spot, where they're supposed to put them. No dates. We don't have the birth and the death dates, but at least we document this. And then we have the father on the other side with Chester. So let's go through this. So we've got Catherine Frances Demery. Her mother is Laura Catherine Schuler. And on the website, if you go into the family albums, you'll see photos of Laura and some of these individuals. Her maternal grandmother. So Laura's mother is Hannah Lucetta Dow. Her photo is also on the website. So you can see the whole Dow family currently in the family album. The maternal grandfather, Hannah's husband, is Henry Schuler. So that's where her mother gets that Schuler line, Schuler name. And then
you can see too, like, so you come down here and you're right, the way that they have like set it up is very,
they set up interesting. And then they're giving Henry's information. So we have Henry Schuler is descendant from, it looks like Johnston Schuler. But we can also see these other names: Sarah Warthen, Alexander Robert Dow. There's the Dow line. And the Mary Ann.
This is her maternal grandmother's parent.
Right. This is all on the maternal side, this whole part of the tree. Then on the other side, we get Chester Demery. And Chester is descendant of John Samuel Demery. And that's Clarissa. I know this. Evelyn Elkins. If there's a little short on the YouTube channel, because we actually have the glass from 1895 that belonged to Clarissa, and it's in the china cabinet right now. There's a little plain glass with a gold rim, and inside there's a little note, which is Laura's handwriting. It's either Laura's or Sweetie's handwriting identifying this is the glass belonging to Clarissa. So we have Chester's mother's glass from the end of the 1800s. Then we have John Samuel Demery here. Those who are watching the screen are going to notice he's missing some information. He's not exactly clear on all of it. We know that there's an Elkins in the background. We know that there's a Demery leading off the tree. I've since filled in this family tree. We do know all the different levels here. Now, John Samuel was in Indiana, and before that, the family had been in Kentucky. And in a previous trip with my father, we'd actually traveled out to the town where they were buried, where they lived in Kentucky. So we've actually been out to the grave sites of the Demarys that are in the generation basically from these empty spaces here. Probably some of the only people that have been to there was only like one generation that spent time there. So they're the missing names here. Is John Samuel's father was in Kentucky. And she would have loved to know that at the time, but at least they have this much information coming over. And then, of course, this is all the bride's family. So this is the left side of the page. On the right side of the page is the groom's side of the family. So we get Lew's tree as well. And there we can see the names we've talked about. Samuel Graham, Eliza McBride, William Graham on the father's side. And there's Sidney Bonsall from the Lewis, married to the Matlack. And you can see the Lewis line moving through and the Matlacks coming in here.
Well, and here we see too, there's different handwriting. So obviously some either she filled this out later on in life, or
I think so.
Somebody else.
This is not Lew's handwriting.
Right.
I've seen it. Lew has an interesting handwriting. This is too precise. The only one I suspect might be Lew's handwriting is the one that says Elizabeth Kaiser in the middle. That's a lot closer to what his handwriting looked like. This also looks like different. Like maybe they were trying to fill in the dots. Like they were trying to put this together and it took more time to work it out. Now, Chester and Laura, they know their family history. So this is pretty consistent. Right?
Yeah.
Going through. But they were documenting the Grahams really well. And that Lewis line actually in Philadelphia is pretty famous as well. One of these lines on the Graham side goes back to the Say line. It's S-A-Y. It predates this. And I believe he's like the father of like American etymology or something around Philadelphia. So there were a lot of naturalists I thought you'd appreciate, like on the Graham side historically, that were pretty famous. But good family lines there. Now the next page, blank, this is the wedding invitation. So we don't really get to see the copy of the invitation there. And then their party. I love this image of the women. See the short hair again. Now this is the party, right? So it's a party, so that the short sleeves is acceptable to the tradition.
Well, this was probably for the bridesmaids and the groomsmen.
Right. Yeah. We have the picture of it. We know that there's at least Jean is going to be maid of honor, and we have the best man as Joe Rusky. And then we get to this lovely little image here of the church. This watercolor is beautiful. It says, "My bride, my wife, my life. Oh, we will walk this world yoked in all exercise of noble end." So, the religious sentiment coming in. And then we get to a certification of marriage within the book. We saw this in the 1910 book as well, because there's probably a document filed with the state. But then they kind of have their own certificate in their own book, which is neat. And this says that this certifies that Catherine Frances Demery of Ottumwa, Iowa, and Lewis Sidney Graham of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, were united in marriage according to the law of Iowa on the 3rd day of December in the year of our Lord, 1943, by Luther L. Booth, I believe the name is, the chaplain of the U.S. Navy. So here's the first piece that we didn't have. Who was the person that gave the service? It's a naval chaplain. It's interesting, and I know this is kind of a sad thing to think about, but so Sweetie and Lew they're buried at Arlington National Cemetery. And when Sweetie's ashes were buried at Arlington National Cemetery in the 2000s, the person who gave the service and read those rites was a U.S. naval chaplain. So I find it appropriate that we do have, the Navy chaplain at the wedding and the Navy chaplain at the end. So that's something really beautiful to think about. And they did a great job. And then we have the witnesses. Now, here's the best man and the maid of honor. So we have Joseph Rusky is the best man. And then Velma Jean. One of the rare times we see Velma, it's all official, so she's got to use her full name.
She has
Velma Jean Demery. Yeah. And I suspect, because we're seeing this handwriting, it could be Jean's handwriting on this document.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking she should have signed, Jean should have signed it herself, but they also probably, they were thick as thieves. They might have very similar handwriting. I have very similar handwriting to my mother. So I think that, and my daughter's handwriting is actually very similar to mine. So I'm sure that I don't know. I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go with Sweetie here signing this, but
Yeah,
that definitely could have. There's a chance it could be
possible. Yeah.
Jean. Yeah.
It looks like Joseph certainly signed for himself. His
He
handwriting
certainly
is
signed
very
for
different.
himself.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And again, like look at the beautiful like artwork.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I
The deco style. This is
yeah,
quite lovely. And not too many pigments of the tone are really neat. There's really just 3 colors on the page, but it's beautifully handled. So the design back then of the watercolor. And then we got one of our big documents here, and this is what really shocked me. Among those present. So the wedding was in the Corey home, and the Corey home is not that big. This house still stands in Ottumwa. It's like the average living room size, your average dining room size. Like I'm thinking about where I live, which is I think about 1,100 square foot in like a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm guessing their home couldn't have been more than 1,500 square feet total. Probably about that. And all of these people are here. And so this, by the way, this is half the list. There's another page of a list, but we could look through the names here. I'm just going to call to attention a couple of these signatures because these are clearly signed by the individual.
Oh yeah, this book was there at the wedding. Yeah,
this was here. So Olive Smith is right at the beginning.
No, there's somebody. There is somebody.
Right, yeah, there's somebody above. Hard to read.
I don't know who it is.
Yeah,
but
somebody's above Olive. Yeah, got the first signature in.
A dude, probably a doctor.
Yeah, we do get.
And then we have Olive Smith.
Olive is the significant other for Joe Rusky. That's the girlfriend. So we had a letter which mentioned an Olive for Joe Rusky, and that's her. And there's going to be quite a relationship there. She's going to come up in future letters that we're going to hear from Olive. And then I think it's a Jean Melrose, a Helen. It looks like Branbose. Hilma, it looks like Fence is referenced here. This is a nice way to fill in some of the gaps of who these people were when in the letters they just give the first name. Hilma, we've heard about a Hilma coming in. Mary Farley, Hazel Reynolds, we've heard about a Hazel, I think. Virginia Webb, there's a Madonna. So before Madonna, there was a Madonna in Iowa. Madonna, it looks like Cab, Mrs. Jones, Ray Jones, and then we see the name that we expect to see, who's in Ottumwa, is Lucille Miller, is the roommate. So she was at the wedding, as was her mother. So Mrs. C.H. Miller, because we knew that the Millers were in Hedrick, Iowa, which isn't too far from Ottumwa, and Lucille was more familiar with the area than Sweetie. But Lucille and her mother are at the wedding present there. Florence Brewster is not Bob's Florence, because that Florence would now be Demery and was also Boudreaux. So there's a different Florence here, a Dorothy J. Bayer and a Josephine Taylor signing the list. And it looks to be all of the women on this page. And then here are the guys. And I love that they do this. And right up top, who's the first person? Chester. Chester's distinctive signature is one. It's like, because usually you think about doctors writing prescriptions. It's this rushed note. He has a very precise, as would be expected with him, very precise, very unique signature with the way he writes his C and D and just the way. And then Laura, Mrs. Demery.
Well,
there's the mother.
Above.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wife and husband, and she signs herself as Mrs. Jones, and Ray Jones. So like, so I like that. And we can kind of see after that there's another person that I have no idea.
Well, we can work this out because he abbreviated his name, and the last name's Bolton. So that's the WM for William. So that's Bill Bolton.
Oh.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And
and then Margaret, she's not Mrs. Bolton. She's like, no, I'm Margaret.
Yep. Yeah. She didn't write Mrs. Bolton. Yeah. Margaret Bolton. Yeah. L.A. Robinette. I've seen that name around a little bit before. And it says, I think it's Mrs. Robinette underneath it. Mrs. Robert Macbeth, Rosemary it looks like Enery, Dan Redmond, and then Joe Rusky is doing the John Hancock style of let me write as big to make sure that everybody can see this.
I was here.
Mm-hmm. I was definitely here. And then right underneath Nelson Corey. So
Nelson Corey, Mr. Corey, and Mrs.
Eleanor. Yeah, Eleanor running the show for sure.
You know what? I'm seeing Velma Jean Demery. I think that she did that. Yep, she signed it. Those look very. Yep.
Yeah, so actually we can compare that. Let's scroll up. So that there's Velma Jean's signature with that very distinctive V. Yeah, that's definitely her signature because of the way the shape of the V is. So it looks like she was doing a lot of the work for Sweetie and keeping track of things.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, Jean.
And then Betty. We've got Betty signing as
Sweetie.
well.
Oh, there's
Mm-hmm. And then now we know Mrs. Luther L. Booth and Luther L. Booth. So that's the chaplain and the chaplain's wife.
I like that. I like that the wives, that most of them, except for Margaret, she's a rebel.
Yeah,
but I like
she's
that
being a rebel. Yeah.
The wives are all like, I am Mrs. You can refer to me as Mrs. Smith.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that. And then again, we have some more beautiful artwork.
Oh yeah,
I really do like
the watercolor. It's either pastel or watercolor, just the way they printed this. And then among those present, so they that was it. But that's a pretty good crowd. So I guess we can count this. We can get an official count. 1, 2, 3, not counting bride and groom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 on the first page, all in this little living room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 31, it looks like, present. Then the bride and groom. Plus little M.A., the flower girl, who's not mentioned. And little A.L., the Corey daughter, who's not mentioned. So in total, if they're planning dinner, it's dinner for 35 minimum. Wow. And Eleanor's running the show. No wonder she had a lot of cleaning to do. I really thought it was a much smaller number than this. And when I saw it, I was like, whew.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And then there's another page for more present, but 35 is sufficient here. And then we get to see, I love this image, the gifts and the documentation of who sent what. Because in some letters we talked about, I think it was Frank and Maida. I think it was Maida who sent the blue blanket with the satin. That gets documented, but here we get to see exactly everything. And we have lambs and blue satin quilted comforter. And this was sent from the office force. So what's amazing here, and I'll be happy to share this with NAS Ottumwa, one of the big problems for these old bases being restored is the military didn't really keep track. It's kind of extraordinary to think this, but they didn't really keep track of who was at certain training bases at what times and working there. Somehow those records are very difficult to get through. So when I'd gone out there and I'd asked, do you have a full listing of like the roster of all the guys that were here and who worked here? It doesn't exist. So you have to piecemeal figure out who worked there. But because on this page we have the office force and we know she works at the base, I suspect this is a list of people working in administration at NAS Ottumwa. So this helps fill in the gap for about 20 people. So this is the gift coming in. So that it's probably like, they all contributed towards buying this. And I'm not going to read through all the names, but there's a couple names for people watching this where you can spot that they were in they were at the wedding. The Madonna stands right out. I guess
that stands out right away.
That stands out right there. But everybody's contributing to this. So Sweetie is, if all these people are contributing towards her wedding gift, she's built some really solid relationships in Ottumwa. Then we see, and I love this, the bride book. So the book we're looking at was a gift, and who, of course, provided and said we need to keep track of things was Eleanor Corey. So this book was gifted to Sweetie by Eleanor, which, she's on top of it.
So, yeah, she's taking care of stuff. That's amazing. It's, it was such a nice thing for a Sweetie to get that kind of friendship and support in Ottumwa. So this is all the office staff, and then you have the bride book was Mrs. Corey, and then what does that say? Wooden leaf tray?
It says wooden leaf tray, a crystal sandwich tray, so probably like a carving of like a tray with like some leaves and things, crystal bowl, and the crystal sugar and creamer. So each person is getting like getting one of those items that we still traditionally give out today for weddings, is filling in these sets, and everybody's doing their part with that. The gifts continue. We have absolutely the full documentation on this. We have the candy dish, rose point, Demery coat of arms. So he's going to do the hand painted. This was mentioned in the letter. Mama and Daddy.
Mama and Daddy.
Yep. Chester's like, what's most important other than some silverware is we must put this coat of arms on your wall. And we know that Lew then hammers it into the wall. Not long after in the letters. So that would have been the one that they were working with. The blue wool blanket, from Maida and Frank. So that one was referenced in the letters. Pink blanket, Lucille Miller. So she's, they're getting a lot of supplies for going into that newlywed setup. all the way down to the sheet, $25 money order. So mom and pop.
Do you think that was Lewis's
I think that's the Grahams.
mom?
Yeah.
No.
Because the word pop, he refers to his dad as pop.
And she does refer to Chester as daddy very often. Yeah.
Yep. And then the sheet is actually interesting for who signs it, because every now and then we see the military designation, so we can keep filling in our mind those rosters over at Ottumwa. Lieutenant Brewster. So we have the full name, luckily with the initials being documented here. So there's another serviceman coming in. And then $25 as well, Joe and Marguerite Graham. So they also sent $25. So they're getting $50 from the Graham side here. And this indicates
because I have a lot of trouble keeping everybody straight. So Joe and Marguerite are Joe
is Lew's brother.
Okay.
Eldest of the Graham children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe is the eldest of the Graham children. Yes.
Yep.
And they got money. There, that's very nice.
Yeah. And they also, this gives us a date on something that's harder to track down. This indicates, because I've looked for it, that by 43, Marguerite has to be married to Joe. So at least we know at this point, this isn't just like a fiance or a boyfriend-girlfriend. Oh, I should say just a fiance. This isn't a fiance or boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. They're married at this point. So we can say Marguerite is officially the sister-in-law for Lew. And they're very taken with this. And Joe has that close relationship. Then we have a clock from Beatty and Wright. So what's interesting here is Lew has his sister Elizabeth, but she's not mentioned. So it's just, we notice the absence of the one sibling sending something over. So we'll keep an eye out for it through this list as we go through. Joe sent something, parents sent something, but not clear if Elizabeth, Lew's sister, sent something for the wedding. Because the next thing goes to Beatty and Rita, and Elizabeth isn't married, so this is something different. At least not at the time. The damask tablecloth, 6 napkins, the mirror. I think we still have the mirror. Schiaparelli bath powder. So that's always nice. I always want more things for like the bath and like these pretty things that are just extra, but they're obviously wanting to make things nice for the home. $15. 6 teaspoons and the salt and pepper shakers and a silver relish dish coming in. And we have another lieutenant here, Lieutenant McGee, identified, no doubt at Ottumwa. Then I love this listing here. This is perfect. This is a continuation of the gifts. It says $25 war bond, and this is labeled as the boys in the barracks. So we have another listing of about 20 individuals that were absolutely at NAS Ottumwa. And this is like, we've got like the office staff, right, with Sweetie. And now we got the boys with Lew. Now we got the guys, coming in here. Not everybody gave their first name. And this is a thing in the military, because a lot of guys in the military, when they're working with these guys and serving with them, everybody knows everybody by their last name. So we
call them by their last name. Yeah. And then, dude, like if you look here, like this is such a boy thing. I kind of actually love it. Yeah. But you see Tractor.
Yeah.
He was probably like a farmer and wouldn't shut up about tractors, and so his
nickname's probably Tractor.
And then you see Pulley.
Sure. Pulley, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also like Mason. And then what is this one? Indelicato? That's what it looks like. Indelicato. Which you remember when we were talking about the draft when you would register?
Yeah.
And they had like 5 different things that you could 5 different classifications. Like
they had the different on the draft registration cards. Ethnicities.
Ethnicities. So, and like Indelicato, like that might have been somebody who was not originally from. Yeah. And then then that's what they decided to call him. But this is this speaks a lot to like the camaraderie that you have in the military.
Right.
When you go through the training together, you guys develop a bond. And clearly they all got together and and let them know that, you're part of our family.
It's interesting, right? Because when I think about the guys getting gifts and the women getting, the women were out shopping.
Oh, yeah.
What would you get? Oh, this is a really pretty, the lambs, there's the blue satin, the quilted. And you get to the office staff. And I mean, I think there's some men, like Gene Melrose, Eugene. Like there's some guys in the office staff list. They probably, I don't want to stereotype too much, but they probably were like, okay, ladies, like let's figure out what we're going to get. Just let us know what we're going to contribute.
No. The guys, I can tell you right now, we're not in the office. We're not choosing the women were like, we're going to do this. And they're like, okay, here's a couple bucks.
Here's some cash for that. Yeah.
Take care. We're going to buy the pretty blanket. And they're like, good.
You know, they all went to town and were shopping together. Like a significant amount of these ladies were like, oh, we got to look at this thing and that thing. There's a lot of weddings going on at the time. So, you know, there's a time.
Oh, yeah.
By the time you get to the boys in the barracks, how much should we give? $30? No, I don't think we could do $30. There's a great comedian who was on there used to be that great little show, Last Comic Standing, where it was a competition to win. Yeah, I think it was on NBC. And there was a comedian named Jerry D. And you can see some clips of him online. He does this whole routine about wedding gifts as people are like deciding amounts. And he's like, we got one plate. What are we supposed to do with one plate? Gee, honey, pass the plate. I need to eat now. Like, you know, like the curiosity, I guess. But like, he said that they got, one of the wedding gifts they got was $45. They're like, how do you come up with this amount? Like 25 makes sense for this wartime, but I love this routine he does. 40, how do you come up with that? Was it going to be $50? And then like on the way to the wedding, you were just like, well, I got to get a card. So like $5. Or was it a debate? Should we give $50? That's too much. Like
they bought a card, right? So it's like we had $50. Then we had to go buy a card, but it's like you can't put in $48.50.
Right? Yes. You gotta round it out a little bit. Or did $50? I think he goes on.
Wait, no, dude, can I get a candy bar?
Yeah. Yeah. Inflation wasn't as bad when that routine was done.
It's an I love it. I love that the guys are so different. I love that the office staff is different, and it just it's cute. It stands the test of time. This is like
it's very typical, right? Some things never change. All right, guys.
Okay.
Somebody go get the bond. Yeah.
Was that all of them? Was that all the gifts?
That's the listing of all the gifts. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there's this blank page for the journey, because I think it was just sort of more of a timeline sort of page. Honeymoon notes. Now we know from the storyline, this is World War II. They're not taking a honeymoon. And the trip to Philadelphia might feel a little bit like a honeymoon, but it is not their actual honeymoon. They do have a real honeymoon at some point in the future. I'm not going to give away when it happens. It's not the upcoming trip to Philadelphia in the letters. Then we have telegrams being documented. Who sent the good wishes? So the good wishes from near and far. And I love the little 4-leaf clover that they're sending, because they're sending luck for the bride and groom. And we get telegrams here from Joe Graham, so that's Lew's brother. And then she's noting who she received. All the cards. The first card is from Eleanor Corey. So all the cards are documented here. The office force from the card, and then many of the same gift givers, you know. You know what? I don't see a card here from the boys in the barracks. So
no, I don't think that they're.
They didn't.
Did we see a card from Lew's sister?
Oh, let's take a look here. So do we have another Graham in here? It would be Elizabeth Graham at the time. She's not married yet. I don't see. No, I don't. But we do see some other names here that come up every now and then. I love some of the names here. Aunt Mary and Uncle Cyril. Uncle Cyril is Chester's brother. So this is on the Demarest side. He's an interesting character. And when we come across him in the storyline, we'll go into more information from that. If I recall correctly, he had a very dapper outfit that he would wear, and he really wore interesting hats. Cyril's an interesting character. It's also not a name we hear too many times for the men, but that's Chester's brother. Then we see Uncle Rolla and Aunt Rosanna. Aunt Rosanna is Sarah Rosanna Schuler. That's Laura's sister. So these are both Sweetie's aunts and uncles, and we see them coming in. Then there's an Uncle Merrill, which I also believe is in the Demarest side. So we got Cyril and Merrill.
I was gonna say.
Yep, in the same page. That's there. Funny. That's family.
It's Cyril and Merrill and Pearl.
Yep. And one of the interesting names here that stands out to me, at least from where I live, is that there's a name here. I'm not too sure who exactly they were. But we see Reba Yerkes, Yerkes, and Yerkes is an old line from the southeastern part of Pennsylvania. So I'm very suspicious that this is, with the older history lines being together, that this is an old family friend potential for Lew. But yeah, just beautiful Beautiful little section. I like that they document the cards and they call it, the good luck section. And then we've got here telegram clippings where she could have saved them. I love this image. See the woman with the hair up again and the long sleeves, and she's reading the paper because she's not out to a party. Mr. and Mrs. come home. Well, they were there. So, it's a cool image, but yeah, it didn't really need to document that one.
Well, actually, that's really funny too. Like, well, of course you want that. Mm-hmm. But when we got married and we came home from our honeymoon, I made him carry me across the threshold.
Good.
That's probably what that was for.
Oh yeah, probably.
The picture carrying across
picture of the bride. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we have the first callers, the dinner guests, and the party. I love this image here.
Her hair is up and her
hair is up. Covered. Yeah, this is formal though, of course, so she can wear the short sleeves. I love the old braid. This is a beautiful, lovely image. And less do we have arrangements with candlesticks with the long candles on the top. They have a particular name. They're actually getting kind of hard to find at stores these days. Fewer and fewer people have the types of candles like this. So something to note. I went looking for them at some point, and I was like, it's interesting. These are not really in style anymore, so they really stand out in the imagery now to me. Then we have our wedding anniversaries first, and these are the ones. This is like the you remember what item you're supposed to get made of a certain thing at certain. So had she documented this, the first is paper, and then 5th the wooden, and it looks like 10th is tin.
Yeah, I think that's tin.
Yeah, that's just an interesting shape of the letter there.
Yeah, the font.
Yeah, really deco. It's like a deco font.
It does really all come together, but it is a little difficult to read.
Mm-hmm. 15th is crystal, 20th china, 25th silver, and of course 50th is the golden. So, and then we have a blank page and another blank page and another one, and we get to the back of the book with just that single little rose in the back. But it's great to see this, to be able to take a journey through and to fill in a couple of the missing gaps of the story of just exactly how many people were there. 35. Who conducted the ceremony, who gave what gift, and the full listing of that. And you see these relationships moving, even though we're in the middle of World War II and she's working at the base and he's in the service. A little sense of normalcy with the wedding. And a lot of that is Eleanor.
Too, like, she didn't fill out the whole thing, which is fine, but she did document like who was at the office and who he was close with at the barrack.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot of people. Yeah. So even if it just shows that you can find like just the most treasured information in just very small
for
places.
Sure.
So we have like all these names now. And too, like these people we're going to come across, and we have come across in the
right. Some names we're going to see a little bit more from in the future, so it's a little bit of a preview of that. Real quick, I'm just going to go back to the website here, because now that we've actually seen the images of these individuals, and by the way, the other marriage service book is also in that same section. This is the 1910 marriage service book of Samuel Graham and Sidney Bonaldsall Lewis. So you can see the difference in the albums, 30-year difference of how they looked. But if we go back to the scrapbook and we just go to the wedding album, because now we can put really that name to that face. And we have the invitation too. For anybody that missed this in a previous episode, here's really the whole the outfits and things. So this is Joe Ruski on the left.
Yeah, he looks like the kind of guy that would sign his name really big like that.
Yes.
He's like, yeah.
And they are going to remain friends with Ruski. And then this is the invitation, of course, the original. That probably would have been added to the book, but at least got saved. And this is the one that was sent to Lew's parents. So for anybody that missed that, you can easily go through the album online on lovesweetiepodcast.com. But I think that's probably everything there. Wanted to definitely take the time and give this little bonus content so that individuals could really explore, the organization. Thank you, Eleanor Corey. We know who the hero is. Jean, Eleanor. Chester's like, I'm painting a crest. His wife's still waiting for those tears.
I really like that I don't really like, but I am intrigued that Lew's sister Elizabeth did not send any gifts or any well wishes.
I didn't see any cards. Yeah. If anybody spots her name and somehow we missed it going through, please let us know. Comment in the video below. Hey, she's right here. You're looking for Elizabeth or Betty or Dit being referenced as her nickname. Not there.
And from a previous episode, we know that she was not excited about giving up her gas rations.
No, she was not. No.
Or letting her car. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So things unsaid, undocumented. Kind of interesting.
But this is fun, and I would really love to do more bonus episodes where we can talk about some of the things that we find.
Yeah, and we wanted to take time. There's going to be bonus episodes coming up with some very important details about just life in the times. Not everything's going to be exactly connected to Sweetie. We're working on something that has to do with the logistics of rations at the time, which is really, really fascinating. And when we get there, we'll let everybody know when that's available. But thank you for tuning in to this special edition of the Love Sweetie podcast to go over the wedding album.